Director, Ms. Musibi. This is the final day in a very epic 7 years of Madonsela's term of office. And the fact that there's so much attention, as we're seeing today, this media scrum, as I like to call it, is indicative of the level of interest that the institution now generates and the level of trust that the institution now generates. Part of the reason why we are late is because we had a meeting with the incoming public protector, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, where we discussed a number of issues such as logistics for her taking over this hot seat. We also discussed with her the challenges faced by the institution. We discussed with her the successes of the institution. But by and large, there is more good than bad that has come out of this institution. And certainly more good than bad will continue to come out of this institution as an institution supporting democracy. So I just want to also thank you and also thank the public protector team that you never see, because this is the leadership of. There are the people sitting, some of them here at the back of the room, some of them sitting in their offices upstairs, who actually are the engine room, who get the work done. And Avril Madonsela has, I know she's probably going to shed a tear at some point later today, but they didn't sleep last night working on that other thing that you were all waiting for. But that's the nature of the passion that people put into this institution. We are generating a lot of interest across the African continent, across the world, saying, how do you guys do it? And we will continue doing it in terms of putting this country first, putting the people of this country first, and good governance, clean governance. It's all in the Constitution. It's not something that we are dreaming up. And so, on my own personal behalf, she has been a sister to me. She's not my aunt. I've got a sister her age. You see? People say your aunt. No. She has been a very good colleague. It has been an opportunity to see this institution rise to what it is today, and we hope that we have expressed full confidence in Avril Mkhwebane as she takes over. And on Monday, there will be festivities and things that we'll be doing to ensure that that goes across seamlessly. And I think over to Avril Madonsela. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Public Protector. Thank you all, and our apology. Thank you to the spokesperson. It is a privilege to present the last batch of reports that will go under my signature as the Public Protector of South Africa. As you all know, my term ends today at midnight. It has been an epic journey, as the Deputy Public Protector has said, but that was made possible by the spirit of the team. I will miss this team. Epic may have two meanings. For us, it means a team that is ethical, a team that is impactful. A team that is ethical, purposive, impactful, and committed. And that you come across at all levels, whether you're dealing with our security people at the doors, or you're dealing with our CEO who just joined us and hit the ground running. And ultimately, our co-captain, the Deputy Power Protector, whom I'm eternally grateful for his frankness, his collegiality, and his leadership. Today we are releasing 5 reports, but before releasing them, I thought I would read for you a letter I received this morning. It says, "Dear Advocate Thuli Madonsela and team," and underline the part that it is "and team. I'm writing this letter to show my family's appreciation and gratitude for the many men and women who have committed themselves to serving us as citizens when we lay complaints with your office. On and around 2012, we wrote to your office requesting help after almost going everywhere and being ignored regarding our hijacked buildings. Your office ruled on 18/12/2014 on a life-changing report titled Broken Promises. Although the city has not completed the implementation of the remedial action, our lives have changed and we are on our way to good recovery, with already a B&B business opening soon in KwaZulu-Natal. We would like to thank you and the entire team for work well done. We hope to resume our shoe business again soon upon finalizing with the city on this matter. We pray that many more South Africans that come to your office may receive satisfying results like we did, and pray that God may reward you, all of you, with wisdom, health, and prosperity. In closing, we pray that you may continue to be a blessing, not only to us, but to many people in whatever you do for the rest of your lives. As you can see, this letter is written to all of us at the Power Protector South Africa. And we've always said that we make the impact we make purely because of our purposeful approach to the work and our commitment. It doesn't mean we don't drop any balls, but if it ever happens, it's because you're human. It's not because we don't care. It's not because we don't know that our job is to protect the public from improper conduct in the exercise of state power and control of our public resources. The first report I'm releasing today is titled Collateral Damage. It is a report about a whistleblower. She was the CEO or Chief Executive Officer of the Estate Agency Affairs Board. She was suspended and eventually fired after she started investigating what she thought was improper conduct by some of the estate agencies. It turned out that at the time, one of the affected parties was a member of the board and later was an ex-board member. She was never given any warning. She was never given a disciplinary hearing. She was fired just like that. When we investigated this matter, we asked ourselves whether the board was properly constituted. Secondly, whether the board improperly suspended the complainant. Thirdly, whether the complainant was improperly dismissed. And fourthly, whether the complainant's dismissal was on the instructions of the Minister of Trade and Industry as alleged by her. And lastly, whether the board victimized the complainant for pursuing and uncovering abuse of funds by estate agents. The findings are, on the first one, I find that the board was not properly constituted. On the second one, I find that the EAA board improperly suspended the complainant. On the third one, I find that the complainant was improperly dismissed. On the fourth issue, though, on whether or not she was dismissed on the instructions of the Minister of Trade and Industry, Minister Rob Davis, I'm saying the evidence we found does not substantiate that allegation. And on the last one, on whether the board victimized the complainant for pursuing and uncovering abuse of funds by estate agents, my finding is that a complaint is justified. Because she was eventually paid out, I have not requested that she be reinstated. I have made 2 orders regarding remedial action. The first one is an apology to the complainant for the terrible way in which she was treated. And the second one is that the system must be fixed in terms of how complaints are handled and how whistleblowers are handled. Incidentally, as a Public Protector South Africa, we have picked up over the years that we really need to do something about whistleblower protection. Just starting from educating people about the role of whistleblowers and the requirement of the Protected Disclosures Act. And lastly, that consideration be given to amending the Act. The second report is called Unreasonable Accommodation. It is really a brief report about somebody who was employed by the University of Pretoria and eventually complained that there was undue delay in the processing and submission of her application for ill health retirement. She also complained that the university had unfairly refused to approve her application for paid sick leave, and that the university improperly discontinued its contribution towards the complainant's provident fund. I also investigated whether the university was wrong in confirming the complainant's date of ill health retirement as 8th February 2008, and whether the university lastly failed to ensure that she received the benefits owed to her, and lastly, if she suffered prejudice. Generally, my findings are that there wasn't really undue delay. It is the manner in which the university processed the request, in that they kept extending additional benefits that were not supported by policy to the complainant, and in the end created some kind of expectation. Because then they didn't follow prescripts, I have made a finding that there was maladministration in the manner in which the university handled this matter, and in the process created expectations it could not meet. Regarding allegations of termination, improper termination of the complainant services, I found that the university didn't do any wrong, in that the procedure it followed was correct. Regarding the unfair refusal or alleged unfair refusal to approve the complainant's application for paid sick leave, I have found that the university's conduct again was proper because its exercise of its discretion was done judiciously. But I think because of the first way in which the university handled the complainant's case, there was a lot of distrust that was created. And in the end, whatever the university did, the complainant was justifiably unhappy. Regarding whether or not the university improperly discontinued its contribution towards the retirement or provident fund of the complainant and medical fund, again, I'm not finding any improper conduct. And then lastly, on whether the university failed to ensure that the complainant received the benefits owed to her in terms of the rules of the fund and the complainant's condition of service, I again find that the university did not conduct itself improperly, but again, the issues of trust created a misunderstanding. Regarding the allegation that the university failed to appoint a panel to deal with the complainant's claim, I find that the university did fail to appoint the requisite panel, and because of that, the complainant was prejudiced, and that the university's conduct does constitute maladministration. The appropriate remedial action is that the principal and human resources should issue guidelines to ensure that leave is properly regulated, and the principal and human resources should also make sure that the rules are followed, and whatever expenditure that was spent without following the rules should be regularized because it wasn't the complainant's mistake. You ask me, why am I issuing this report? It's because the complainant was really vexed. She really thought that she was handled badly by the university, and we did try to conciliate and mediate this matter, and the complainant was adamant that the university wronged him. And we do think that the first part, the university didn't handle it properly. In trying to be compassionate, it broke its own rules, and in the end, a trust deficit was created. Life on a Pause is the third report I am releasing today. The report starts with a quote that says, "There can be no daily democracy without daily citizenship," by Ralph Nader. Life on a Pause is basically about a man who, for many years, was trying to get his citizenship confirmed by the Department of Home Affairs after his family moved to Zimbabwe when he was small. The whole report basically details our going backwards and forwards to get this matter dealt with properly. And basically, the remedial action at this age is simply to give him an apology, because he does want an apology, because his life was on a pause. Why he needed citizenship, it was because his children needed at the end to be able to go to university, getting a bursary through things such as NSFAS and other bursary privileges that are only extended to citizens. And he couldn't find a job because of the manner in which the process was handled. I remember that eventually we even had to do DNA tests to prove that he was who he claimed he was, because it was watched so badly, and they kept just watching it at different stages. But he has been sorted out. At some stage he was camping at our offices because this was affecting his children, his wife, and himself very badly. But it's sorted out right now. What we do hope, though, is that nobody suffers the same fate again. The last one is mega irregularities. It is just a report about the way the Mpumalanga Economic Growth Agency Board, which is called the Mega Board, handled the exit of one of its directors. And basically, we are saying that the issues are whether the resignation of one of the board members was irregular, and whether the MEC unlawfully dissolved the board, and whether the board failed to make regular transfer of funds. And the resignation of the board chairperson, I find that it was irregular, in that she wasn't allowed to serve the stipulated notice. Whether the board was unlawfully dissolved, I say yes, because the MEC just decided to dissolve the board. And lastly, I find that the department failed to, the allegation that the department failed to make regular transfer of funds to the mega account, though, is not substantiated. But it's an issue there of executive interference in state-owned entities, usually state-owned enterprises. Again, you think it's not important, but we come across these things, and they are worth looking into and dealing with. My last report is called Stop the Carnage. It is a report on Cliplands. You will recall that at the beginning of last year, we went to Cliplands because people were being killed, and people invited us to come there and mediate and restore some kind of peace. At the time we were invited, it was some professors from the University of KwaZulu-Natal that had seen too many killings, to the point that they were now threatening to take us to international platforms. I remember the letter from Professor McCoy Mason, the president of the Commonwealth Legal Education Association, in which he lodged a complaint and threatened us. We went there, we conciliated among the residents, and we also promised the residents to find out what was going on there, and why were the killings, and why nobody had been convicted, despite the fact that at the time we got involved, about 50 people had been killed. The issues to investigate were whether the eThekwini municipality administered the Cliplands hostel in accordance with the laws and the applicable policies and prescripts, and if not, whether such constitutes maladministration. The second issue was whether the handling of the security situation at the Cliplands hostel by the security cluster accorded with the duties imposed on it by the Constitution and the law, and if not, whether such amounted to maladministration. Lastly, we asked whether the Department of Social Development fulfills its mandate in relation to the victims and survivors of the Cliplands hostel violence, and if not, whether such failure. In arriving at the findings, I have been guided by the standard approach adopted by the Public Protector South Africa, which involves asking what happened, what should have happened. Is there a discrepancy between what happened and what should have happened? If there is a discrepancy, does it amount to maladministration or improper conduct? If there is indeed maladministration or improper conduct, what would the appropriate remedial action be? As it is customary, the question regarding what happened is resolved through effectual inquiry and relying on the evidence provided by the parties and independently sourced during the investigation. In this particular case, the effectual inquiry focused on whether and to what extent the relevant state institutions fulfilled the responsibilities in ensuring that normalcy was restored to the Cliplands hostel. The question regarding what should have happened focused on the law and the rules that regulate the standard that should have been upheld by the state institutions to prevent maladministration and prejudice. And of course, the investigation, as all others involved, inspections in local, going to the hostel, having meetings with the security cluster, meetings with the complainants, interviews with the residents at the hostel, including those that were involved in the fights and killing of each other. We obviously use the Constitution to assess whether or not the standards that should have been upheld were upheld. Among the sections that we use were Section 152 of the Constitution that provides that the objects of local government are to ensure the provision of services to communities in a sustainable manner, to promote a safe and healthy environment. We also looked at Section 4.2 of the Local Government Municipal Systems Act, which provides that municipal council has a duty to A, strive to ensure that municipal services are provided to the local community in a financially sustainable manner, and give members of the local community equitable access to the municipal services to which they are entitled, to promote a safe and healthy environment in the municipality. And the eThekwini municipality and hostel policy provides for, among other things, the implementation of an effective access control, the signing of lease agreements, the regularization of occupancy and payment of rent, and the control of trading within hostels. There are several other statutes that we held them to. I'm going to jump that and then say what are our findings regarding whether the eThekwini municipality administered the Cleveland's hostel in accordance with the law and the applicable policies and prescribed, and if not, whether such amounts to maladministration. My finding is that the eThekwini municipality failed to promote a safe and healthy environment within the Cleveland's hostel, as required by Section 182 1D of the Constitution and envisioned in its own hostel policy as approved in 1998. B, the eThekwini municipality failed to give members of the local community equitable access to the municipal services to which they are entitled to. And C, the eThekwini municipality failed to provide services to the Cleveland's hostel community in a financially and environmentally sustainable manner as required by Section 182 1B of the Constitution and Section 24D of the Local Government Municipal Systems Act. The failure by the eThekwini municipality as outlined above constitutes improper conduct as envisaged in Section 182(1) of the Constitution, in maladministration as envisaged in Section 64A(1) of the Public Data Act. B, regarding whether the handling of the security situation at Cleveland's hostel by the security cluster accorded with the duties imposed on it by the Constitution and the law, and if not, whether such amounted to maladministration. My finding is that the South African Police Service failed to live to the object to prevent, combat, and investigate crime, to maintain public order, to protect and secure the residents of the Cleveland's hostel and their property, and to uphold and enforce the law as required by Section 2053 of the Constitution. The South African Police Service failed to uphold the rights of the Cleveland's residents to be free from all forms of violence as enshrined in Section 12(1)(c) of the Constitution. C, the failure by the South African Police Service, as outlined above, constitutes improper conduct as envisaged in Section 182(1) of the Constitution, and maladministration as envisaged in Section 64A(1) of the Public Data Act. The eThekwini Metropolitan Police Service failed in its role to prevent crime at the hostel as required by Section 64E of the South African Police Service Act of 1995, and that failure constitutes improper conduct as envisaged in Section 182(1) of the Constitution and maladministration as envisaged in Section 64A(1) of the Public Act. Lastly, regarding whether the Department of Social Development fulfilled its mandate in relation to the victims and survivors of the Cleveland's hostile violence? If not, whether such failure amounted to maladministration. My finding is that the Department of Social Development failed to fulfill its responsibility to the victims of the Cleveland's hostile violence as required by Section 27(1)(c) of the Constitution, and this is contrary to its policy on social relief of distress. The failure by the Department of Social Development, as outlined above, constitutes improper conduct as envisaged in Section 182(1) of the Constitution, and maladministration as envisaged in Section 64(a)(1) of the Child Protector Act. The appropriate remedial action I'm taking in pursuit of Section 182(1)(c) of the Constitution, with a view to placing the victims as close as possible to where they would have been had the improper conduct or maladministration not occurred, while addressing systemic administrative deficiencies in the relevant organs of state, is the following. 1. The municipal manager of a eThekwini municipality must take appropriate measures to promote a safe and healthy environment at the Cleveland's hostel, and in this regard ensure A, that a database of the evicted and displaced people is compiled, and that in the event that these people cannot be returned to their allocated rooms, but suitable alternative accommodation is provided to them. B, that access control is implemented as provided for in the hostel policy. And C, that the regularization of residency is implemented as provided for in the hostel policy. 2. The municipal manager of a eThekwini municipality is to ensure that the community of the Cleveland's hostel is allowed equitable access to municipal services to which it is entitled to, and in this regard must ensure A, that refuse is collected and removed on regular basis, B, that infrastructure like damaged water and sewage pipes are repaired timelessly and where necessary replaced, C, that the hostel grounds are adequately maintained with grass veggies trimmed on a regular basis, and D, that lighting both inside and outside the blocks is improved. 3. The municipal manager of a eThekwini municipality is to ensure that services to the hostel are provided in a financially and environmentally sustainable manner, and in this regard ensure that the collection of rental is implemented as provided for in the hostel policy, and trading within the hostel premises is controlled as per hostel policy. Finally, the Provincial Commissioner of the South African Police Service is to ensure that the South African Police Service meet its object to prevent, combat, and investigate crime, to maintain public order, and to protect and secure the residents of Cleveland's hostel and their property. And in this regard must A, consider the establishment of a satellite police station within the hostel premises. B, ensure that sufficient numbers of police officers are deployed to do static duties inside the hostel whenever the threat of violence is reported. C, ensure that all reported incidents of police brutality outlined in this report are referred to the IPID, and all other cases of police misconduct are thoroughly investigated. D, ensure that all serious crimes like murder and illegal evictions are investigated by the police detectives from outside the Umlazi police station in order to address perceptions of partiality. The South African Police Service must take all necessary measures to uphold the rights of the Cleveland's community to be free from all forms of violence, and in that regard, A, ensure that perpetrators of violence are arrested and brought to book. B, take all measures necessary to improve the relationship between the local police station and the residents in the hostel. The last remedial measure is that the member of the Executive Council responsible for the social development in KwaZulu-Natal is to ensure A, that the department implements the action plan referred to above, and that the head of department establishes the reasons for the department's failure to fulfill its responsibilities to the victims of Cleveland's hostel timelessly, and take appropriate action against officials found to have been responsible for the omission. The provincial head of the IPID must note that the Public Protector will monitor the investigation of the allegations of police torture and killing of Cleveland's hostel residents, and in that regard should provide the Public Protector with a copy of the IPID's final report. Thank you for your interest in our work, and thank you for the journey we've had. Thank you to the leadership of the Public Protector team, the Deputy Public Protector, Advocate Kevin Malunga, the Chief Executive Officer, Louise Zondo, the Chief of Staff, Bongiko Sidlamini, Spokesperson, Kalalelo Masibi, Heads of Branches, Bona Mukhaladi, Advocate Stoffel Fori, Advocate Ngebe Kanyane, CFO Kennedy Kaposa, and all the staff members of the Public Protector South Africa, including those that are spread in 20 offices across the country. Thank you for your commitment and making sure that we've been able to do all the things that we've been able to do. There are reports where I signed provisional reports today. One of them that I am yet to sign is a report of, it is a report that deals with an investigation that was initiated by Advocate Paul Hoffman, and it is about the so-called CX report, where it was alleged that monies that had been improperly extended to some bank were not recovered by the government, and that such failure to recover may have constituted maladministration or improper conduct. I have investigated. It has been a lengthy investigation which has included interviewing former President Thabo Mbeki, former Governor of the Reserve Bank Chris Stolz, former Governor of the Reserve Bank Tito Mboweni, former head of NIA Beni Maseki, Judge Bertelsmann, Judge Dennis Davis, and many other people. The findings that I have arrived at have been informed by all of these interviews, including an interview with the person who did the CX investigation by the name of Michael Oatley, who I interviewed in London. I will leave the provisional report. It will be sent to the parties, and the incoming Public Protector will, on receipt of responses to Section 79 notices, decide what to do with it. And on the note of the new Public Protector, congratulations to Advocate Busi Kubani on her appointment as the new Public Protector. May she be blessed as she joins this awesome team, and may she lead it to the next level of performance.